Hello, I'm Barbara Truitt from the Elementary Literacy Team. In this video, I will explain the intentional planning that went into the ELA remote learning pacing for the year 2020-2021. This summer, the Council of the Great City Schools published their guide addressing unfinished learning after school closures for district and school decision-making leading into the current school year. They outlined 6 strategies for addressing unfinished learning, which we used to create our remote learning pacing calendars and Canvas courses for ELA. The first strategy is to stick to grade level content and instructional rigor. Given the amount of time and learning loss since school buildings were closed, it will be tempting to test students immediately upon reentry, identify their deficits, and remediate. According to research, these are mostly ineffective practices which result in low student engagement and increased inequities in access to on-grade level instruction. Instead of jumping into remediation, we should keep focused on grade level content and rigor, addressing learning gaps as needed within the context of grade level work. The second strategy is focus on the depth of instruction, not the pace. As educators, we need to remain focused on the learning that could and should be happening today, not allow ourselves to be distracted by how we can catch students up. These distractions shift our attention from just-in-time learning to just-in-case teaching. Just-in-case teaching wastes time teaching content and skills from earlier grades, just in case students need it for the grade level work. Just-in-time concentrates on what students actually need to master grade level content. Strategy 3, prioritize content and learning. In order to allow sufficient time for the in-depth instruction needed, curriculum leaders will need to articulate the district's instructional priorities, what is most important to teach within the domains of each grade level. It is important that teachers know where to invest their time and effort, what areas can be cut, and where they should teach only to awareness level to save time for other priorities. Strategy 4 is ensuring the inclusion of each and every learner. Now more than ever, it will be essential to ensure that each and every student has equitable access to engaging grade level content and rigorous instruction. The next strategy is to identify and address gaps in learning through instruction, avoiding the misuse of standardized testing. In other words, schools and teachers should approach assessments as temperature checks. A thermometer can identify when someone has a fever, but it takes a doctor armed with this data to probe further and identify what is causing that fever and how to restore the patient to health. This is how we should use assessments. Lastly, we need to capitalize on commonalities, not differences. It is important to recognize that the long-term interruption in schooling will impact some children more than others. Struggles must be recognized, and schools will need to attend to social and emotional well-being of students as they re-engage in learning. Instead of focusing on the differences that exist in student experiences, as educators, we should capitalize on the shared experience of living through a pandemic. The virus, school closures, social distancing have all created new common experiences that can serve as the basis for work across subjects in the first few weeks of school. As an example, the second grade EL Education module topic is schools and communities. Children have experienced an entirely new type of school that they can compare to other schools around the globe. This makes a great connection to the existing content and provides students an outlet to help them process and make sense of their current reality. Now we will look at how Student achievement partners help drive our decision-making when planning the K-5 literacy instruction. This graphic reminds us to keep the text at the center of instruction, where we can build content knowledge and practice close reading of complex text. You can also see here the importance of reading foundational skills in social emotional learning. Student Achievement Partners provides recommendations on how to prioritize instruction. First and foremost, we need to teach students to read. We need explicit instruction in foundational skills, fluency practice, and differentiated small group instruction based on targeted formative assessments. We need to keep text at the center of reading, writing, language, speaking and listening instruction. We can do that with regular close reading of complex text, systematic work with text-based vocabulary, evidence-based discussions about text, and evidence-based writing about text. Of course, we need to always remember connections to social emotional learning to the text. The recommendations from Student Achievement Partners and the Council of the Great City Schools brings us back to our core literacy curriculum, L-Education. Since we transitioned to remote learning in March, we have collaborated with the L-Education team to adapt the curriculum to a variety of settings and learning models without losing content or rigor. As you learned in the Scope and Sequence screencast, this year we have adopted a 3-module instructional approach. This approach follows the same guiding principles and recommendations provided by the Council of the Great City Schools and Student Achievement Partners. Outlined here is the L-Education rationale behind the 3-module approach. You can see that each of these organizations approaches their recommendations differently, but there are many common threads that tie everything together. Let's look at the L-Education Standards Crosswalk for an example. The third column shows the standards that are only assessed in the omitted module, in this case, Module 4. We can see that RL 2.6 will need to be embedded into instruction during Modules 2 and 3. As the literacy team continues to plan and build instruction in the remote learning Canvas courses, you will notice places in which we will expand lessons to address any omitted standards. You may also come across entirely new lessons, if needed, that will provide instruction on standards that would have been omitted from the missing module. This document outlines our CMS K-5 Literacy 3 modules instructional approach. This document is linked in your note catcher if you would like more information. Let's use the second grade L-Education Standards Crosswalk to see how unfinished instruction from quarter 4 can be addressed. The second column shows standards that may not have had full instruction at the end of first grade. We can see that RL 1.9 is in this column. Rather than assuming students will need to go back to RL 1.9 with first grade remedial instruction, we are going to use the second grade modules 2 and 3 to teach this content using RL 2.9 with scaffolds if needed to support student learning towards mastery of the end of second grade goals. To recap, let's remember our new motto is just in time, not just in case. We want to avoid deficit thinking and just in case remediation, in which we assume our students cannot access on-grade level standards. Using our intentional planning materials and the 3-module approach, we can provide students with content-rich literacy instruction and on-grade level standards, providing scaffolds only when needed. I hope you enjoyed this video in our series. See you soon!